Is this the player not in the NHL Hockey Hall of Fame or the Hockey Hall of Fame? Well, if you're a Montreal Canadiens fan and even a Detroit Red Wings fan, you're saying to yourself, okay, show me the information why he's not there. He's a multiple Stanley Cup winner, part of the two greatest Team Canadas of all time in 1972 with the Summit Series and 76 as the Canada Cup. Better known as a Little M, the younger brother of Frank Mahovlich. But Pete Mahovlich, my God, ladies and gentlemen, what a player and what a character. Now, Peter Joseph Mahovlich, known his playing years as Little M, the native of Timmins, his brother was the Big M. Mahovlich played in the NHL for several clubs, including the Canadiens, where he played with his brother, who was a member of 4 Stanley Cup title teams, and of course was on the second best Montreal Canadian line of all time with Shutt and Lafleur. Lemaire, Shutt and Lafleur were just a little bit better. Mahovlich played as a first baseman on his high school baseball team, beating out Gordy Kirk for the position. Like his brother Frank, Peter attended St. Michael's College School in Toronto from 61 to 63, where he played under Junior B squad. Now, eventually drafted second overall by the Detroit Red Wings in the 63 NHL Amateur Draft, the 6'5", 210-pounder played for the Red Wings twice, the Canadiens, the Penguins, and the OHA's Hamilton Red Wings, the AHL's Pittsburgh Hornets, the Montreal Voyageurs, the Adirondack Red Wings, the Central Hockey League's Fort Worth Kings, and the IHL's Toledo Gold Diggers. Now, Mahovlich was an important contributor to the Canadiens' Cup-winning teams of 71, 73, 76, and 77, but before eventually being traded to the Penguins. He enjoyed a breakout season in 71, scoring 35 goals in the regular season and another 10 in the postseasons. The Habs won the title. His best year came in 75 when he racked up 117 points as part of a deep forward core that included Lafleur, Lemaire, Cornway, Shutt, and Gainey. He hit the 100-point mark again the following year, finishing with 105. Now, again, he centered Shutt and Lafleur, and, of course, had the insurance goal in the 76 Stanley Cup. Immensely popular as a Pittsburgh Penguin, like he was in Montreal, cheers of Pete were common when Mahovlich made one of his noted end-to-end dashes up ice. He was characterized as easygoing, joyful, and a partygoer in Ken Dryden's book, The Game. Now, his 16-year NHL career, he totaled 288 goals and 485 assists for 773 points in 884 games. Internationally, he was a member of the 72 Summit Series, in which he scored a memorable shorthanded goal in Game 2 of the series, where he went end-to-end. He also played on the 76 Team Canada Cup squad. So a second overall pick by the Detroit Red Wings in 1963. And let's look at that draft, ladies and gentlemen. Gary Monahan, Montreal had a chance to take him, but he took Mahovlich over Monahan. Walt McKechnie was the first-round pick, number 6 by the Leafs. So St. Michael's number 1 and number 2 draft. Wasn't Jim McKinney taken by Toronto from the Toronto Maroons in the third round, with Jerry Meehan taken in the 4th round by the Leafs. So the Leafs scouted quite well. But Montreal, they missed the boat on not drafting Pete number 1. Now, he also apologized for the Canadiens' 3-3 tie against Red Army in the 1975 December 31st game, and we still don't know why. Maybe a lot of people expected Montreal should have won that contest. Now, after his retirement, Mahovlich was head coach of the Toledo Gold Diggers, the IHL Colorado Rangers, when he was co-coach, the Denver Rangers, the CHL Fort Worth Fire, and the AHL's Cape Breton Oilers. He's also the brother, again, of the former Canadian senator, Frank Mahovlich. The two were teammates in the Red Wings from 67 to 69 and on the Habs from 71 to 74. He was a scout for the Edmonton Oilers from 95 to 97 before joining the Tampa Bay Lightning and the Atlanta Thrashers in the same capacity. He's currently a pro scout for the Florida Panthers. So his 3 years in Hamilton, ladies and gentlemen, were quite good. That was a farm team in Detroit, 20, and 14 contests. His first 3 games in the NHL was in 66 with 1 assist in 3 games. 67, his initial campaign in the NHL, only 1 goal in 34 contests. Now with the Pittsburgh Hornets, he had 11 points in 18 games and 9 in the postseason. 68, 10 points in the regular season for Detroit, but with Fort Worth, he had 20 goals, 14 assists for 34 points. 69, and he had a hard time finding his scoring, his scoring tally. Only 4 points in 30 games, including 2 goals, but in Fort Worth had 19 contests. Now, he eventually ended up with the Montreal Canadiens in 1970 season. We had 17 points in 36 games with Montreal, but was mired in the AHL, but he had 40 points in 31 contests for 21. Now, you got to remember that Montreal Canadiens lineup in 71, they had Beliveau, they had Cornway, they had his brother, and when it was put together, ladies and gentlemen, it was a great season. 35 goals, 35 and 72, 21 and 73, 36 and 74, 35 and 75, and 34 and 76, with only 62 points in 76 contests when he was taken off the big line in 77. Now, due to falling over in management, he eventually ended up in Pittsburgh, where he had a great first season with them with 61 points in 57 contests. 79, only 53 points in 60 games. But back in Detroit, 66 points in 1980, and then was mired in the minors for the next 3 years, and had a comeback of sorts with the Toledo Gold Diggers with 4 goals and 10 assists for 14 points. In the 2 big series with the Super Series and Canada Cup, he had 2 points in 72, including that big goal. 76, he had 5 points in 7 games. Now, ladies and gentlemen, talk about brother combinations. Big M and Little M will always be part of the what was considered the best era of the Montreal Canadiens. Now, a lot of people disagree, but even though 56 and 60 had a lot of good players, obviously with the Richards, it seemed to me from 66 onwards to the time that Frank left and Peter stayed, I call that the Mahovlich era. Like, the team became kind of fun again, and a little bit of like a Toronto Maple Leaf aesthetic to it, where basically you were seeing players play at both sides of the ice. The influence of Provo, the influence of Gainey and Jarvis and Roberts, and the expression "you're only good as your fourth line." I think actually Peter said that, but to see him leave Montreal, and I think he was feuding with some of the players, including Mario Tremblay. But Peter's personality is still one of the best in NHL history, because he never took himself too seriously. Frank took himself seriously. Like, for all the weird aspects of Frank, Peter didn't have them. Peter was a guy like Sim and Steve shot in the same team. Two people too big for the squad. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you like what you're doing here with our podcast on Montreal Canadiens alumni, let us know with a like, comment, subscribe, or share.